Let's go.
Yeesh.
Okay, Mr. Wilford, and it's 5 p.m. Monday afternoon. So I almost said Friday. Jeez, days are turning into nights at the moment, as you can imagine. What's been happening, buddy?
I'm all good, mate. Chilling from my side, brother. More to the point, let's talk about it. Fuck what I've done, mate. Let's get on with what you did. Yours. How are you feeling after your epic trip, man? As I said, I think if people didn't know, we did a basically raising 24 hours of worth of running for charity. And Dill decided, why not take it to the extreme and run basically a marathon in a weight vest from one side of Singapore to the other, which he completed in 7 hours. Is that right? 7 hours, just over. Yeah. 53 click. And he's not a small bloke. If anybody hasn't met him before, he's not a 58 kilo marathon runner. This dude is a big piece of fruit, man. So how are you feeling, mate? That's more to the point.
Yeah, man. Well, big thanks for the little bit of an intro, and I'm actually feeling relatively okay, right? I think the toughest part is I just feel a bit of a space cadet at the moment. I would say it's almost that same kind of sensation as you being really just jet lagged, and so yeah, I think physically feeling pretty okay, surprisingly. But I think that's also a massive contribution to me just having so many training years underneath me. And we can delve into that a little bit later as well. But yeah, mentally just feel like a bit all over the place. Tried to do a bit of work today, and I feel like everything's 3 times the effort, and just like a bit of serious. I'm already attention deficit, and now it's like really coming into order. Yeah, so I think it was a case of just although it's quite a physical task, I think the mental capacity, and obviously just before we even start the conversation, I totally understand people have done much more intense things in their lives, and this was just my experience and kind of definitely the toughest thing I've done in my life so far. So just to give you a bit of a kind of an insight into the furthest I've ever run in my life is 20 kilometers. And that was last year, December. And that was really tough. I was back home in South Africa, and if anyone knows Port Elizabeth or Cape Town back in South Africa, really windy, the weather can get quite lousy. Yeah, and that took quite a bit of effort. But I think, yeah, this past weekend was the mental aspect of it was really tough. And I think it's a really, funny enough, like even after the event, kind of like playing in my head, I feel like mentally exhausted. Yeah, so, but it was good, man. Like, although I've only ever run kind of like probably 2.5 hours I spent was most in the vest before this weekend. It was just a case of like just going out there and giving it a shot, right? And yeah. I know you're a lot like myself. Like if I'm starting, I never quit. It's like that's not even a thought, right? So although there were many times along the way where I wanted to just take a moment and just you get to a point where the pain is so bad, like especially in my calves and my hamstrings were just in tatters, and I think it's just a case of my calves and my hamstrings just kind of taking probably about 105 kilos for, I think I had 65,000 steps. So, wow. It's just that accumulative kind of trauma that you're experiencing. And I once, I had 2 or 3 guys with me, and I once just had a quick little moment with Owen. I said to him, this reminds me of being back in the gym when I was still bodybuilding as a junior, and doing like 1,000 reps of calf raises or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
And that sensation, a lot of the gymmers know exactly what I'm talking about. And your calves, like the overcooked sausages. And that experience and that kind of pain was with me for about 4 hours of the 7 hours. So, but actually feeling quite okay today. It took me about half an hour to get out of bed today, but feeling okay, man. Yeah, mate, it was a struggle there.
Yeah, that's a test, mate. I mean, I didn't. From a perspective, I think what listeners will want to know about, and this is more delving into you, is we always talk about mental resilience and stuff like that, mate. It's a war of attrition. Like you said, I'm just not going to quit. There's many people that have been in your situation who have done crazy, even bigger than you. Yours is amazing, but I mean, like, your guys like Ross Sedgley in the UK swam around Great Britain, or David Goggins passed out and then he whatever. But then, I think, what's your take on how have you trained yourself? You pretend this wasn't happening. Like you're naturally like that. Your natural tendency is, I'm going all in, and like, I've trained with you. I've trained against you. I know some of the dark fucking places you can go. How would you say you could coach that? That's quite a big thing that I'd like to learn more. And don't get it wrong, I can go into a dark place and I'll suffer more than anybody. But obviously, you being older than me, have done a lot more competitive, fitness oriented stuff than I have. It's interesting to see.
I think it's. Sorry to cut you off there, man. I think it's a case of, like, committing to something. And then it's, when I was competing a lot back in the day, and the psychology of it and the mental standpoint is such a huge element. Like, I think to obviously do a lot of visualization is a massive key element to it. I remember when I was doing quite a bit of competing back in the day, and especially for the open workouts, for the CrossFit Open workouts too. Those are kind of the 5 workouts you did over 5 weeks, and that got you to the next level. You and a lot of those workouts, you do it once, and then you have to generally repeat it. And you get some really, really disgusting workouts, whether it's like thrusters and burpees together, or something really stupid where, it's just going to be a lot of pain. And I think a massive element even to this was, like, now I've experienced it, and there's no saying I'm not going to try and do something like this again. I probably will do it again, something like this. But I think you have to obviously have an experience of that pain, and then that dark place, or the hurt locker, whatever you want to call it. And my visualization tactic was, like, I would be able to visualize the entire thing before I've even started. And I think it's detaching the reality of it from, the pain aspect. And everyone feels pain, right, on different levels as well. But being able to psychologically, like, have already experienced that pain and just gotten over with it. So once you actually enter the event itself, you just get on with it. And I think the problem with this is, a lot of the stuff I've done in my life has been quite short time domain. So maybe like max, like, let's say 12, 15 minutes, right? Where these CrossFit workouts where you really have to just hold on. And it's generally kind of really at the end where it really gets dark, probably the last 3 or 4 minutes. And where with regards to, like, doing a long endurance event like this, I think there's many, you go through waves, right, up and down, like, as you're going through it. Sometimes it even felt like I was running, but it felt like I could walk faster. That's how slow I felt like I was going.
The video, mate. The video is you shuffling hard, mate.
Yeah, it's this. It took the Singapore shuffle to a whole nother level, right?
Whole nother level, bro.
Yeah, so I think that coming back to your original question, like, how do you train this, right? And I think it's one, just deciding that you're not going to quit, that you're just going to give everything. And at the end of it, it's a weird situation, because, like, there wasn't a prize at the end, or, it's just more like bragging rights. I mean, that's all you can kind of gain out of this. It was just like $1 million at the end, or, and
I've done something you haven't, kind of thing.
Yeah, the charitable thing was awesome, and I know a good couple of my clients and people donated quite a lot of money to it. Just that for that effort. But yeah, so my go-to would be, like, obviously a lot of visualization, and then I think depending on the event, you would have to kind of change up your mental kind of tactics. With long endurance events, I just recently listened to a guy by the name of Ryan Sands, who is a South African endurance runner, and he's kind of, conquered the Gobi and done all these multi-state, like, these guys are running for like 5 days with no kind of no accommodation, and they everything's in their backpack, and that's like a whole nother level, man. On your own for like 5 days in the bush. And he was just saying, and I kind of used the tactics this past weekend, is you have to just have small chunks. I think as soon as you look at it like 55 kilometers or whatever it was in a big piece, straight away you're gonna struggle mentally. So the goal was to just do like 5 kilometer stints, and it gets to the point where like the next light post is like your next marker, right? And you along the way you play so many games in your mind just to get to the next beacon of to take a break or whatever it might be. But yeah, I think, and then also depending on what sport you're going through, to practice a lot of that potentially going to a dark space would be my go-to, man. I think a lot of guys, they get to that point where it starts hurting really hard and they step back and they pull away. And to my mind, that's where the magic happens, right? That's what makes good to great in a lot of things in life, whether it's work or whether it's raising your child, or whether it's in a physical capacity like this past weekend. There's many standpoints where we're building resiliency and that mental callousing, as Goggins knows so well. So in my post today, I said everyone has to have their Goggins moments in their life, and it doesn't. I'm not meaning that it has to be physical, but I think it's just a case of taking on something in your life that makes you really nervous. I think is a big one, but you're not scared of, because I think being scared of something is very different to being just quite confident, and but also respecting the challenge, I think, is a massive element to it. So yeah, I do challenge everyone to have that moment in life, right, where they really push to the end, man, because that's where you grow, and that's where all the good stuff happens. And I got a message from Lee Withers late this afternoon, and Goggins says, kind of once kind of all the fear is gone, I mean all the pain is gone, on the other side of pain is happiness. I haven't got there yet. Let's just say that. That's a whole different story, man. That's a whole different story. Yeah, but
mate, it's amazing, man. Well, it's massive. Even something me and you in it, but it's a milestone for you to have hit, and also you thrive for tests, mate. It's in your blood. It's in your demeanor. It's in your genes to challenge the status quo. I've actually had a question. When you were proper knackered, were you worried about injury? Someone's asked. Dougal, big Douglas.
Yeah, I think injury, past injuries play in your mind a little bit. I had been suffering with a little right knee. I had like a bit of an LCL tear when I was playing rugby when I was 18 years old. I ended my rugby season because of such a bad injury. So just the lateral ligament that runs, just for the viewers, on the side of your knee. And that's been playing up just a little bit the last couple of weeks, actually. If I do any kind of sprinting or any speed work, it definitely starts pinging, and quite an acute pain. So that was playing on my mind a little bit, but I was just going to ignore it, and luckily, like, just kind of pushed through, and it didn't flare up at all, or didn't rise its ugly head, should we say. Kind of thing. When I woke up this morning, my lower back was really sore, just tight, because the angle you're running with the vest, it pulls you slightly forward, right? And you can imagine now, like at the hinge, you're almost like in a bit of a slight hinge. So it's not, obviously it's not optimal running position. So if people want to know about running, and that's definitely not optimal running position with the vest on, because it's going to tear you apart, right?
Oh.
So, and then just mild chafe. Funny enough, like on my belly button, it's literally like raw, man. But other than that, just a lot of Vaseline, man. That helped a lot, eh?
Lots of Vaseline, boss.
yeah, plenty. But
plenty.
Yeah, so besides the knee, that was pretty much it, man. And then just had to keep the men's capacity. I got into about 30 kilometers, man, and it was interesting because kind of like getting to 21 kilometers, and that was like the furthest I ever run in my life. And every time you go an extra kilometer, that's kind of like the furthest you've ever done, right? So all in, it was, I probably ran about 2.5 times the distance I've ever run. And but you definitely have the capacity, I think, mentally, to get into that kind of flow state, right? And I spoke to a Ironman probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it always blew my mind to watch these guys train with no music, nothing, because you're not allowed to obviously race with music in your ears in Ironman. It's one of their rules. And I saw guys often in the gym and sitting on a spinning bike for like 5 hours, just sitting there. And my question to them often was like, what's going through your head, right, at this moment, that you can spend day in, day out, on your own, no music, no like internal, like no extrinsic kind of motivators. That takes a lot of like mental capacity, man.
Absolutely.
And it's that callousing, right?
One of my clients is an extreme. We used to be a professional adventure runner, and he's like Petra Goulart. The boy. He used to same thing, and all his thing was train your brain. He said it's nothing to do with the training. He said it's all to do with training your brain. If your brain can rationalize what you're going to do, your body will follow. And it seemed like it would have been you as you're cool and collected, man. Like you said, you just weren't going to get beaten by it. Mate, that's a long effing way, and especially in a vest. People are like, oh yeah, it's only 8 kilos or 9 kilos. When you're running that distance in that thing, apart from being restrictive and giving you chub rub everywhere, but it's a totally different animal. And it's you're saying the same thing.
The vest is interesting, and if anyone kind of wants to do a weighted run of sorts, I've got some tips and tricks with regards to the vest, because first of all, like, you want to get a good vest. I think it's a must, right? If you want to start, and there are some great vests out there at the moment. And then you really want to make sure that those plates are quite snug in the vest itself. A lot of guys are asking me now recently, like, doesn't the plate, like, I know some of the plates move up and down, but there are attachments inside where you actually have to, get the plates really tight inside, because you don't want any movement. And then after a while, like, it actually feels like you don't feel the vest, because it just becomes one with you, right? I think the only time you really feel the vest is when you take it off, and that's just a moment of absolute relief. I didn't take it off once through the 7+ hours, only right at the end, because I knew in my mind, like, if I take this vest off, like, I'm not going to put it back on. And it's a lot of that kind of, it's nice and symbolic for a lot of things in life, right? Like, when you, as you know, like, and I'm speaking to a good man as well, like, when you start something, right, you're in, man, and you go through the shit, and that's just part of how it goes, right? You get out the other side, and it's all worth it, man.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And mate, massive. I mean, maybe for people, I think one thing I think we should cover is, you're not an everyday populative athlete, man. You're an elite level athlete. For someone who is embarking on either thinking about doing, not ultra racing, that's way too extreme, but like you said, people are looking at weight vests and going, they're cool, I'm going to buy one, I'm going to just leg it around everywhere. And like me, for example, it's the longest I've ran in a year. I ran 12.5K in a vest, and he said, my calves like sausages, my calves like chipolatas, mate. They're tiny, bro. So but one thing maybe to think about and maybe discuss is, like, how did you periodize it? Because I remember Stu and Naz put a wicked post up saying, if you're just running around in a vest without any idea of what you're doing, and then you're not a tactical athlete, you just you need to get a coach or wonder why you're doing it. Now, it's definitely a hardship element to it, and a brain game to wear one. And there's no reason why people can't wear them. But I think it would be wise to talk about, like, actually, you spent a month running every day nearly, and covering miles. Like, you weren't just doing like 800 meters. You're doing like 5 or 6 click, 10 click. How do you think if someone was looking to buy one, would you reckon?
So yeah, and again, it comes back to your training age, right? Like, and I spoke to Stuart because Stuart's coached me for quite some time, and we had a conversation about this, and um, I think because I've entered the sport of fitness, whatever CrossFit, like I've done so many repetitions, whether it's squats, lunges, running, on the air down, on the like you have to get that build that capacity right up, and that's years of training. So my go-to for anyone that wants to buy a vest, because they are attractive and it's quite cool, and I think there is an element to it, like a military element as well, which I think
Yeah.
is quite attractive for males, right? So for myself, like I never went to the army or the navy or anything like that, and I think I would have really, really, wanted to have signed up for something like that. It massively prescribes to me and as a person, and so I would have.
My mum wouldn't let me, bro. She said she'd shoot me if I went. I got asked to go by the Marines to go. They came and they're like, we will pay for your uni. I went home, and she just went, "I'll shoot you first." That was it. No go.
So just to build that mental resiliency, right? But so I would start walking with it first of all, right? You want to get some good clicks on your legs with just walking with the vest. And then what I did for mine was taking consideration I've done quite a bit of exercise through my life. So I originally signed up for this 100 kilometers for the month of May, and I did one long run through the week, and then I did about 2 or 3. I ran every alternate day. So on the alternate days, I still did strength work, which was quite important. I still want to maintain as much strength as possible through the circuit breaker. So there was a combination of kind of running, and then the following day was some strength work. I did a lot of core work. I think the vest is really going to challenge your core. And then I think if you want to start doing like bodyweight workouts with the vest on, I think that'll be really good as well. Just getting used to the vest. And I think, as you noticed, when you got your vest, like the first thing when you, as you start running, like you can't breathe, because now obviously your lungs and everything else can't really work as well as possible, right? So it might feel like you're breathing through a straw at times with the vest on, especially if you really start pushing yourself. Like you can imagine, as soon as your heart rate goes up, your lungs start working a lot harder, your diaphragm's trying to pump a lot harder as well. So there's a lot going on in the internals that people need to understand as well. So buying a vest and going out for like a hard 5K sprint and trying to match your usual 5K time is going to be really stupid. I think, I've told some people, like, and I said to Stuart as well, like I can run at a 5, maybe if I'm really fit, maybe like a 4:30 to 5-minute pace per kilometer. And with the vest on, I was probably, running not for the endurance run, but for my general run through the week was probably about a 6 to 6:10 per kilometer, for about 10 kilometers. So that is quite a significant difference on capacity. And I did actually also find that I couldn't really get my heart rate up because I wasn't, and
can't get your speed up.
Pushing myself, like I couldn't go fast enough.
Yeah.
So that was also quite interesting. I'm not sure what the implications are like directly on the internals when you're running the vest on, but it definitely has quite an impact. So yeah, walking first of all has been a must. Then doing kind of bodyweight exercises with the vest on, and then I have done. I did a bit of reading up before I did this long run about how guys are running in their vests, and so what guys are doing is, let's say you run 3 times a week. In general, let's make one day of the week, maybe the shorter run, a weighted vest run. So that's how the guys usually kind of program it into their workouts. So maybe once a week you run with the vest on, or once every third run maybe with the vest on would be a good idea. And again, it comes back to the goal, right? Like if you want,
why?
Yeah, what are you doing? And where's this going to lead you? And
what's running a marathon in a vest, mate? What do you mean what we're doing?
Yeah, let's scrap this entire weekend. from the idea of why. The why was just like a charity thing, and this idea actually comes off a good chat probably about 5 years ago that I had with James Love, the man, the legend. And we said about 5 years ago, hey man, let's walk across Singapore in a weighted vest. So that was where it stemmed from. And after this 100 kilometers I did, I probably did 200 kilometers in this past month with the vest on. So I did 100, and then I did 2 or 3 more other runs afterwards, just to kind of give it a good feel before the long one. So yeah, it was the seed was planted probably about 5 years ago to run across Singapore, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah,
no one can take it away from you either. It's one of those ones, isn't it? It's a challenge that's meaningless, but it's not meaningless to those who understand the sort of how hard that is. It's just a brain game, man. Like, what a brain game that is.
yeah,
like you said, at 30 click, you're at that point where you're like, actually, I've done a lot here. And a lot of people would go, you know, fuck it, I'm gonna whatever. Where it is, I think it all comes down to your environment that you train in as well. I think, and the people you hang about with. That's what I love talking about mental resiliency and about how people actually can learn to suffer, which is a needed process when you're trying to improve yourself, because you can only do that through, you can go the science, through adaptation, but more so, can you hang in the fight? And that's what I think that's what you were doing that for. Was, I think, subconsciously you haven't got that push as much. So this is you making sure that you stay sharp, man. Sword's got to stay so sharp all the time, man.
Yeah, and coming off that, I was actually speaking to Naz about 2 weeks ago, and she tried to give me some advice on my nutrition and stuff, and we talked about a bit of stuff, because I think that's a massive part of doing endurance stuff is obviously nutrition, and we can touch on that a little bit later. But she said to me, like, why do you want to do that? So I said to her, man, I just want to feel nervous again, man. And I think
awesome, isn't it?
As an athlete or someone that competes, I think, that's a big reason why we compete, because of that feeling of, obviously, the pre, all the pre-setup and the excitement getting into it. And then it's like, when you go through the event itself, there obviously are moments, there are multitude of emotions going through, especially on such an endurance event. But it's an interesting journey, man. Like the build up before it, any competition, whatever it might be, because that's where you're definitely putting all the legwork in generally, right? And then you're just executing on the day. With whatever sport, I mean, you fight, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's an hours and hours on rolling and perfecting your technique, and then just putting that last final
game time
in the coffin, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I can definitely resonate with staying sharp, mate. It's hugely important, and having that challenge and having that competitive edge, because I think it's the road to staying soft, mate. I think when you don't challenge yourself, I think when you start living in a comfort zone too long, you get this emotional blanket that's not transparent. You can't look through it, and you suddenly think things are a lot harder than they are. And that, I remember, it's impossible until it's done. I love that saying, because so many people will give up early and then suddenly realize that there's people that they know who are friends of theirs, or people they know that have got to where they want to get to. Yeah. But they're no different to them. So then what's the catch? The catch is they're relentless, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's a wormhole, man, for sure.
Yeah. I just read something, actually, I think it was yesterday or today, and it was about kind of it was actually quite ironic in the situation, and it was just about big challenges and whatever it might be, and like anyone can do it, right? Anyone can do it. It just really, it's just, as you talked about a little bit earlier, it's just a mind game, man. That you got to, and you'll be surprised how far you can push the body. Like, generally, I would say most people are definitely going to give up mentally before physically, because it's just so easy to give up, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't get you anywhere,
agreed.
Unfortunately. It doesn't get you anywhere, man.
No.
No.
Apart
And
from
you
you
wouldn't
just
have all that. I couldn't live with that regret either.
no, you can't. You can't put the big wig out there and not pull it off 100%, mate. Mate, I
Yeah,
wasn't.
yeah.
When you text me that, I prepped it for the night before. That's why I was like, oh sweet, I'm gonna go and do my hour and a half and see how far I can carry, man. But I was not upset with myself, but I was annoyed. I was there going, you should have done something massive. But to be fair, my calves were hanging in rags. I haven't ran in that far in
Yeah.
a vest in donkeys. It would have been dumb. But I've said to Rach that that's my ambition. I want to do some, when all this COVID stuff goes, I want to do some big expedition or big mental trek or something like that, just because it is that challenge and that sort of euphoria of accomplishment. It is when you finish sport, you kind of miss it. And like you said, I mean, I mean, obviously I fight and stuff, but I don't know how long that's going to be. I want to be able to. I was supposed to fought abroad, I don't know, 5 times in the since all this stuff's been going on, or I got injured, or you do miss it. It is a huge part of what you do, is having that sort of that freak out moment of actually shit, I'd like to go into this.
Yeah, no, you need it. I kind of just crave that, man. And like, it was probably about 2 years ago when we had Mila, my little girl, and I said to Amy, we kind of had a discussion about me kind of competing that year, and just because although I don't really see it, I totally understand she sees it. Like, it just become a different person for about a month before the big competition, right? And because you're just that laser focus, right, that you just dial in, and that becomes everything for that moment. I think, spouses and partners of people that do compete in whatever it might be obviously take quite a load of it, and it must be tough for them often. And big respect to them, because I think that's
massive.
Just your support at the end of the day. And often it becomes very selfish.
It has to be especially in your environment.
It's the keeps you. That's that drive force, right? And that focus that you have to kind of exhibit to get to where you want to be. And so coming off, and I actually competed that year still. I did 1 or 2 competitions, and she wasn't really impressed with that. But anyway, I just crave it, man. I like, it's the elements of, like, once you've tasted it, it's addictive, man.
Yeah.
And it keeps you I think it also just humbles you and keeps you focused. Especially we train a lot, and like, that's a massive element for us. I think that's why I think it's so important.
Gives you a why, mate. That's why. I'm massive on the training element of, I'm doing this for this. I'm not just doing this to look like this. Because how many people do you know that are shredded wheat but have got their basket cases upstairs because they haven't got a they're self-imploding, or they're self-obsessive about a physique that when they're 50 they're not going to have. You're getting older, man. But then the things that you do when you challenge yourself, you have those forever. And that sounds quite philosophical and really big, but that's what I have a huge commendament to bodybuilders. I think they are they're scary, man, because they're the ultimate brain game. They can suffer more than anybody, and they are hard as fuck, excuse my French. Like, but then for me personally, coming from a competitive environment, my only competition that I want to be against is when I'm in the ring, or when I'm in the mat, or when I'm on the pitch. I find that gladiatorial side of things is is similar to, he said, when you're on the floor and you're about to rip in. When I was a kid, I said to my dad about how rugby made me feel alive and electric. And I think it's such a little, it makes you, it's a childish way of looking at it, but I've always, when I lost that feeling for rugby. So that's why I stopped. I stopped feeling that was my need. I had to play it. Now, there's other things in my life that there's not necessarily, I'm not going to go back. I do miss it, but it used to be at all costs, hence on my face like a jigsaw puzzle, where now I wear these glasses so no one can see the scars, mate. So I look clever, innit?
I think it boils down to passion, right? And that's that driving force. And, for yourself, kind of like coming off probably the last game, and you just weren't really feeling the passion anymore. It's amazing. It's like a fire that burns deep inside us. And you will go to the end of the world to keep that fire alive. And Yeah, I think you make a good call though when your passion dies to pull out and just end off on a high, or whatever it might be, because I think when it becomes a massive job, to kind of keep in it, and to keep, you almost lose it and you start doing it for other people, and then you just, there's no point in that at all, man.
It's where you get injured as well, mate. The amount of rugby players who I know who are now playing for money. I used to play footy. It was not about the money. It was about the feeling of folding someone in half. Where when it became a job, which, don't get me wrong, when I was a pro, it was my job, but it was my prerogative to play better, to make more money, not to play rugby to play money. And there's a lot of my friends who are my age now who are retiring, or they're dropping down leagues they're like in Championship or Premiership, and they're dropping down to level 4 rugby.
Yes.
Organized fighting, and their heart's not in it, man. You're not going to hit someone like you used to hit someone, and that's why you're going to get injured. And that's why I was a bit like, and that's one of the reasons why I finished rugby in Singapore. But was when I played, I loved it, and I loved the boys, and the competition was fun. I got targeted, had my rib broken, my rib popped out my chest, and then I had to work the next day. And I looked at myself like, you're playing because you enjoy it, but why I'm not enjoying it, so why am I doing it? And it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever done. That was one of the toughest things I had to. I was lucky that I found BJJ, only for the reason that it gave me a purpose. And then it comes down to your identity, innit? Like, what do you resonate with? Everyone. I used to be a rugby player.
Yeah.
When now I'm not. Now I'm a coach, and it's taken me 5 years to suddenly accept that as my new identity, rather than being, now, man, I'm a rugby player. I'm not a rugby player anymore. However much I am, that's not who I literally am, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a big one we spoke about the other night with our men's chat, the identity of this all. And I think athletes and guys that compete have it the worst, right? It's like whether stepping on the rugby field, and like that's just for so many years. And I think often now it's probably one of the most difficult things, I think, to disassociate yourself from that. And I think a beautiful kind of part of it is like the coaching element, because you're still kind of in it, but you're not playing. And I know obviously it's very tough, to stand on the sideline and watch these guys get in it, right? Because you just want the lead.
I couldn't, man. It used to kill me, mate. Last year with Wanderers, mate, was the hardest. I'm there literally, boys. We were against STC, down by 3 minutes to go, and I'm there going,
give me a jersey.
I used to shine, mate. That was my bit. I was like, this is war. We came through it and won, though, which was worth it. But it was more the point of, like, it's a brotherhood thing. It's a weird thing, mate. Like, it's a brotherhood thing, isn't it? When you resonate. It's the same with the gym. I'm sure you had that TP where it wasn't about the CrossFit. It was about the community. It was the same with my rugby, mate. Is when I came here, it was about, I wanted to be part of something, and it was massively important to me to be part of something, which now I am now. But that's what sport is. And having that identity factor of it, which resonates with you, a huge thing that I say to people who are coming out of sport. It's interesting. I've got a lot of people I'm trying to speak to who have done the same thing, but they diversified into new different areas and made choices to either leave rugby or stay in it, or leave fighting as a couple. It's just interesting to see how people deal with that transition between, like you said yourself, you're now a family man, you're still an athlete, you're a coach, but that triangle's equal, obviously more so towards your kid and your missus now, but more, you still have that in your life, where a lot of people finish their athletic potential where they think, and they fall off the wagon. They lose. They haven't got another driving force. They haven't got another, like, actually, I need to get off the floor and get on with it. A lot of them spiral out of control, whether it's piss, booze, drugs, whatever. It is a huge part that I think people don't see, is that brain game as an athlete.
Absolutely. And I think, the best thing you can do is, in your situation, like you were coaching, whatever it might be, because 100% you don't want to be standing on the sideline, but you could potentially make up for it in kind of, recreating a culture with younger players and mentoring. And when you can kind of start seeing a little bit of them, a little bit of you in them, at least, I think that's kind of quite rewarding. Like, you have to accept that you're a coach now and you do the best job you can by helping people. And
Absolutely.
once you can kind of see people obviously change their lifestyles, gain the results that they are wanting, and that you have as a team kind of collectively, worked so hard for, that can be massively rewarding as well, right?
Yeah. Mine was to build. I said when I came into the job, it wasn't about the rugby, it was about the mob. I wanted to build. When I played in some of the worst, with some of the worst people. These guys are one up from prison, man. But we would go to teams who were with all the money, all the bells and whistles, and we would just absolutely let rip. And I love that because it was my gang. And it was one thing that I felt I love doing, is building teams and building and showing people they have as a team, you've got the edge if you've all got a common goal, right? So that's what we had at Wanderers, was like, the slogan was one mob. And at first it was a funny thing, we took the piss out of it, but by the end of it, mate, people were ready to die for it. It was fucking wicked. And it's the same with that. I think, like you said, when you go into a team workout at CrossFit, it doesn't matter what's happening. I'm not letting out for my team. When we did that fittest personal trainer in Singapore, and we walked in there, it was a hotel room with deadlifting in it. But even then, I had the fear, because I didn't want to let you two were like elite level fitness athletes. There's me, Fatty Boom Boom, literally going, nah, I can't let these guys down. I've got to do this. I've never done this before.
It's the occasion, eh?
Literally is, man. Like, the team don't quit. Let's go, man. It was on.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. It just kind of sparks a little thing in my mind about teams. And I've just obviously, recently, a lot of guys, you watch this Last Dance with Michael Jordan, and it's always interesting to see the underbelly of these teams, right? And it was just so, like, that team was just so broken up, and there was just so much kind of politics going on, and it just, I often you think to yourself, like, do those guys actually enjoy their careers? Like, how much fun did they have? And it was just a labor of, like, just doing it for the sake of the cash? And I think your experience definitely, or hopefully for many people, leans more towards the fact of building a mob, and enjoying your time as much as possible, and getting the most value out of what you're doing, and hopefully finding happiness in that brotherhood. I think it's
memories, man. Like you said, you can give people money, you can give people all this fame and all this shit. No one cares. It is, when especially when you've been involved in both sides, and you've played and you've coached, you know when something's done right and it sits with you, and you can actually be proud of it. Whereas I think, like you said, in the market, it's the same with the professional sport, man, and that NBA level, how much, how many people are broken from it. I remember watching, was it Hard Knocks? It's an NFL documentary. This kiddie flew in from Denver to Miami Dolphins. He's 21 years old, rolls in, just signed his first ever NFL contract, sits down. The coach literally grabs him and says, "Sorry, mate, the linesman decided to stay. We were putting you back on a plane. You were not going to sign you." Just left his family, his wife, his school, everything. And he lost everything for nothing. You can see, like, no one sees that in the NFL. They see these dudes who are making whatever $200 million a year or whatever. But it is interesting as a coach and a player. You see both sides of the coin, where building an environment. I mean, we have it at the gym, man. Like, that's one thing me and you pride ourselves on, is not having that atmosphere. You come in here, you come here to train. You come here, earn your crust and fuck off. Don't come in here showboating or thinking you're this, because you're not. Because the place is bigger than what you are, and that's what I've always grown up with. Is having that sort of that's what it's about for me, boss.
Absolutely. Well, that was a good chat, Will.
Boom.
Another
you better go and get some peas to sit on, mate, for that chub rub, boss.
Man, I think I used about at least half a kilogram of Vaseline yesterday. Vaseline all over the place.
The shop you bought that from thought you were a weirdo, boss.
Man, it's a laugh saver, I'll tell you. I actually looked for the stuff called Body Glide. I couldn't find it, but people rave about this Body Glide. And I think it's the weird thing about endurance sport, right? If you ever get into it, it's like there's so much that goes on in the background. Are you wearing the right socks? Have you
Yeah.
got the right shoes? Like, you know, there's so much going on. But yeah, I think we can definitely plan something a little bit fun, mate. Maybe
Yeah, man.
a north to south would be fun.
Let's do it. I'm in.
25 big ones.
25. Yeah, I could do that, man. I could do that, no problem. 50. I'd have done it. I might have taken me 12 hours. I'd have crawled. I'd have bitten my way there. I wouldn't care. But I definitely. Asked Rach. I was there fuming. I was like, fuck, I should have done something massive. But yeah, mate. Yeah, congratulations, mate. I was sick. Like you said,
Thanks,
he set a precedent, man. It's wicked.
Cool. Take it easy, bro. And
Next week, man.
have a lovely week, brother. Look after yourself, man. Cheers, dude.
Cheers, man. Cheers, guys. Tap.